Obviously, some suppliers will be looking to kind of diversify their sourcing and maybe move some production into the US. Is there any advice you can give on this process or complications that brands can prepare for?
Well, I think that again, there's certain mitigating factors. I think in terms of production in the USA, it is probably a good time to look at that. And I think the people that are looking at that are the brands that I don't want to say generic, but that's kind of a good word for it. The brands that you don't necessarily need to source from a particular country. Just whether it's just Pinot Grigio or Chardonnay, of a particular, ubiquitous type of label, they can move that production. And there's also a lot of juice in the USA, a lot of grapes. So for that type of commodity, it can be moved. Now, I do think there's going to continue to be an appetite for those unique products that make this industry what it is, whether it is Scotch whiskey or French cognac or tequila or a beautiful red Burgundy. So I think those commodities will survive, and there may be some price issues. But what some of the mitigating factors there can be working with the cost basis for one thing. So a lot of importers in the USA, especially on the distributor side, they are buying from a USA seller who represents the brand nationally. There's an area of customs law called first cost. So you can actually pay the duty on the actual first cost of the product, say the way the product is sold to the US national importer, and then it is resold to the wholesaler. If the national importer agrees, that distributor who's paying the duty on that, they're the listed importer, they can actually reduce that cost that they're paying the duty on by going through this first cost basis. So that's one way it can bring a cost down. Say the seller is adding 10% or 6%, whatever that cost is, then that can lower that overall duty rate. So that's something that during the round of 25% tariffs due to the civil aircraft issue, more companies looked at that. It's not that complicated. It can be done. It takes a little work, but it doesn't solve the problem. It just saves a little bit of money. Other people are looking at, for example, bringing in bulk on the spirits world, bringing in bulk product and then blending bottling in the USA. That is another tactic that certainly can mitigate any overseas tariffs. It becomes a USA origin product if there is some transformation done. So I think everybody's looking at their options right now and negotiating, better pricing, negotiating shared, cost on those tariffs. The other thing too that we always suggest is looking at every possibility to benefit from CBMA, the Craft Beverage Modernization Act. Maybe you change your supplier to a different producer who's not part of a controlled group, not part of a bigger group, so you can get those first tier CBMA benefits. So there's some definitely some things to look at to mitigate the costs.
Definitely, definitely. And I think you touched on some of them, but the people who are really going to have the most trouble are the people with denominations of origin like tequila and Canadian whiskey. And you touched on some of the things they can do, but it's definitely going to be more complicated for them. Is there anything else you think they can do specifically with those denominations to protect themselves?
Other than shipping early and holding a lot of stock and inventory, there's really not a lot to be done. I mean, you can put product into a bonded warehouse or foreign trade zone to delay payment of duty. It's interesting to see. I think it was on the Canada, Mexico, and definitely the China tariffs, where the foreign trade zone, what we call foreign privilege designation, was required. So not being able to manipulate any tariff codes, shall we say, while in a foreign trade zone. So those tactics can at least buy you some time. I mean, if you don't have that $25,000 in the bank to pay the 25% duty on your $100,000 container, then yeah, throw it in a bonded warehouse and bring it out gradually. I mean, so in terms of cash flow, that is definitely one good way to manage the cash flow.